A former DPS employee in charge of making the district safer says for leadership, security was not a priority. Melissa Craven says she worked in the district safety department for 12 years.
Well, now she's joining the parent safety advocacy group calling out the flaws in the school district's first draft of their new safety plan. And 9 News reporter Jaleesa Irizarry shares with us what parents and former DPS employees hope to see in it.
But we're still about 7 minutes out.
Waiting is sometimes the hardest part. But when it comes to change,
good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Craven.
It's all about timing.
DPS leadership says student safety is their #1 priority. In my experience and that of my former colleagues, that is less than accurate and would be laughable if the consequences to our students and staff were not so extravagant.
For Melissa Craven, leaving DPS
was not my choice.
Shortly after the most recent East High shooting gave her space to see what the district was missing.
What doesn't exist is a culture within DPS that focuses on safety and allows the community to have trust and confidence that safety is, in fact, their #1 priority.
On Sunday, the district wrapped up feedback for the first draft of its safety plan. The plan included some things like giving the middle and high schools the option to have armed officers in schools and a discussion of weapon detection systems. But it did not include changes to the pat-down policy. A plan that left 2 East High deans vulnerable. They were shot while waiting for someone to help with the pat-down.
The Department of Climate and Safety had not held a training for school staff on how to conduct pat-downs. Yes, campus safety officers are trained to conduct searches. However, they're not always informed that a search is underway.
Change doesn't need to be challenging.
We want our children to learn. We want them to come home from school, and we want them to thrive. That's it.
But the longer it takes, organizers say, the harder it gets.
As long as our children believe that we're failing them as adults, we still have work to do. So thank you for being here.
We did reach out to the district for comment. They sent a statement saying safety is their #1 priority. They stressed the district guidance to school officials is that if there is a concern that a student may have a weapon, a DPS campus safety officer or patrol officer should be involved in the search. The second draft of the district safety plan is expected to be released on Friday.
I think it'll be very interesting to see how much change there is between draft 1 and draft 2, but I'm also curious as far as how much this may impact other schools, both in and outside of DPS.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a ripple effect in these things, isn't there? And a lot of the parents that I spoke to said they have been speaking to the superintendent and sharing their thoughts, and they said they are hopeful some of the suggestions they made will end up in draft #2.
All right, Jaleesa, thank you.
The family of a young woman murdered 3 weeks ago in Lakewood wants your help to find the killer. 22-year-old Amanda Beaubien was shot to death back on April 30th. Court documents say Beaubien was at a house party when 3 men became angry that she was showing interest in another man. The 3 were kicked out of the party when they started calling Beaubien names and threatening the other man. As the 3 men were driving away, shots were fired from their car, hitting and killing Beaubien. Witnesses say the shooter was 24-year-old Patrick Placinio, who is now wanted for first-degree murder. Beaubien's uncle says he is praying that he'll be behind bars soon.
We want justice. We understand that justice doesn't undo what happened to Amanda, doesn't bring her back, but it's important for those that are responsible that they're held accountable for their senseless actions.
Lakewood police say Placinio is known to hang out in the Lakewood and Denver areas. They also say he should be considered armed and dangerous. Anyone with information about his whereabouts is urged to call Metro Crime Stoppers at 720-913-7867.
Deputies questioned but then released 2 men after shots were fired at the Cherry Creek State Park swim beach yesterday. Witnesses told the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office that 2 men were firing weapons at around 6 p.m. The men then drove off. Deputies tried to stop them, and eventually deputies used their patrol cars to end the pursuit, but the suspect's car then hit a fence and crashed into a backyard. Investigators say they questioned the 2 men but then released them, and no arrests have been made. Let's take a look outside. It's been a beautiful day outside of all that smoke.
You can't even see across the street.
No, it's very disheartening whether you can smell it or see it, or for some people it's one of those things you notice at sunrise and sunset when the sun turns so red. So, Kathy, a big part of our forecast right now involves where that smoke is and where it's going.
Exactly. And it's our Canadian friends to the north. They are dealing with a major wildfire outbreak, if you will. And winds from the north are driving that smoke southbound into Colorado. We've been dealing with it off and on all weekend. We had the Colfax Marathon this weekend. A little break from the really bad air during the race. But as you can see, we've got that really bad air settling right back into Denver. Visibility less than 3 miles in some areas. The winds are driving that smoke and haze up against the Front Range foothills coming in out of the east. When the winds come in out of the southwest, it helps to scour out some of that bad air. Denver once again under an air quality alert. We've seen that off and on for the past 72 hours. Where you're seeing the darker blue is where the heavier snow bands are. And I think we'll start to see some improvement by Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. We have to get through tomorrow. We're going to see the winds out of the southwest pushing into Nebraska and Kansas, but we've got to get through one more day. And it may be warmer tomorrow and drier for many areas. And so those in the sensitive groups really need to limit time outdoors with conditions like this. Currently 73 degrees in Denver, 81 in Grand Junction, 77 in Greeley. Tracking a few scattered storms over the elevated terrain. Dropping heavy rain, that's the biggest threat this afternoon. We do have a flash flood warning, and that is out just to the south of Salida. That cell that you see right here, Chaffee, Fremont, and Saguache County, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain an hour in that area there. A lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. I think Denver's going to miss out on the action tonight and again tomorrow, but storms are back in the forecast as we move into the middle part of the week. So mild and dry out there for now. Coming up in Maine weather, the forecast for the wildfire smoke and when it's going to move out of here, and then when rain is back in the forecast, because that will also help to clean up our air.
We'll take that. Thanks, Kathy. Parts of Colorado have seen a lot of rain lately, but the Colorado River is still struggling with extended drought conditions. Today, the 7 states that rely on that water announced an agreement months in the making that will reduce water use by 13%. The states hadn't been able to agree on where to cut usage from even under the serious pressure from the federal government. Now, Arizona, California, and Nevada have all agreed to take less water from the river in exchange for a $1.2 billion payout to irrigation districts, cities, and Native American tribes in those states. They're the most aggressive cuts ever experienced in the region, but experts in water law tell us it's just a Band-Aid over a larger problem.
When you change the rules of the river to make it incentivized for all the players to come together, we get a solution. And this stopgap measure isn't exactly what we were looking for, but it's probably going to work. What it really does is set the stage for 2026, when we need to change the rules of the river in such a manner as best we can that every state is incentivized to find conservation measures and to find ways to make it work.
2026 is when the 2007 interim guidance on water usage from the Colorado River expires, and states and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation can work together on new rules to govern water usage for another 20 years.